Who is a fan of warmer temperatures? If you thought, I like it a little hotter, you're in luck. Over the last century or so, global temperatures have been consistently rising, which is not great for the Earth as a whole. What has caused this climate change? The main culprit is carbon emissions from the constant burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are burned for a variety of reasons, ranging from powering most modern day vehicles to simply turning a generator to create electricity. But the main idea is we need power. Without power, our modern day world does not exist. But burning fossil fuels is wreaking havoc on our planet. This method of creating energy releases massive amounts of air pollution, and the higher temperatures are causing global sea levels to rise and much more extreme weather conditions to occur. To combat these issues, many forms of renewable energy sources that produce much less pollution have been produced and are being implemented across the entire world. These alternative energy sources are more practical for the environment and can be used for any application that fossil fuels are being used for. That is why I'm proposing that alternative energy can effectively replace fossil fuels. The effects from climate change are already being felt through lowering air quality and more extreme weather conditions. These problems will only get worse as more pollution is created through the burning of fossil fuels. If no corrective action is taken, the well-being of everyone living and everyone who is going to be living will be called into question. So, today I will be evaluating my proposition by discussing the energy output of alternative energy, the cost of alternative energy, and the longevity of alternative energy compared to fossil fuels. First, it's important to provide some terms for today's argument. For the purposes of this speech, alternative energy will be energy sources that rely on quickly renewable resources. Replace will be defined as the ability to fulfill all of the purposes of another item or idea. Finally, fossil fuels will be defined as natural resources that develop from the remains of organisms over a large time scale. Now that I've defined some terms for today's argument, it is important to set limitations for those terms. Alternative energy will refer to energy sources that are renewable on a timescale that is observable with any human life, such as solar and wind power. Fossil fuels will be defined as fuel sources that cannot be renewed in a time that is observable with any human life. Some examples would be coal, oil, and natural gas that take millions of years to be replenished. Now that I've given terms and set limitations for those terms, I will now give arguments in support of my proposition. First, alternative energy produces ample energy to power our everyday lives. In the widely interdisciplinary reviews Energy and Environment journal article by M. Hasunazaman and co-authors, published on July 13, 2016, it is stated that at the end of 2014, nearly 22.8% of all energy was generated through renewable energy sources, and that these renewable energy sources were only gaining in popularity. According to Georgietta Crowe on Stanford University's website, published in May 2019, quote, global renewable power production increased by 6.3% in 2017, end quote. As countries around the world continue to favor alternative energy sources over fossil fuels, renewable energy will continue to create a higher percentage of the power that we use every day. In The Economics of Renewable Energy by David Timmons, Jonathan Harris, and Brian Roach, published in 2014, it is affirmed that, quote, the daily supply of solar energy is theoretically sufficient to meet all human energy needs for an entire year, end quote. This shows that more than enough energy is produced through renewable energy sources, but we're just not utilizing them properly to their potential. Once the proper infrastructure is put in place, renewable energy sources will be more than sufficient to completely phase out fossil fuels. Next, I will discuss the differences in alternative energy versus fossil fuels in terms of cost. Again, referencing The Economics of Renewable Energy from 2014, it is said that the cost of retrieving fossil fuels will increase as the resources become scarcer, while renewable energy sources will only become cheaper as new technologies are developed. Therefore, there will be a time when renewable energy will become cheaper than fossil fuels and will remain cheaper for the foreseeable future. It is also stated in The Economics of Renewable Energy, published in 2014, that, quote, all energy sources receive some degree of subsidy support, but subsidies heavily favor fossil fuels, end quote. It will take longer for the price of fossil fuels to match alternative energy if the governments continue to artificially lower the price of fossil fuels by subsidizing their cost. If preferential subsidies were instead applied to alternative energy sources, fossil fuel prices would increase faster and alternative energy would be much more cost effective. Finally, alternative energy sources will last much longer than fossil fuels. Crowe, once again from Stanford University's website, states that oil will be depleted in 30 years, natural gas will be depleted in 40 years, and coal will be depleted in about 70 years. That is not a sustainable system. There's a good chance that some of us will live to see every single one of those dates. According to the NASA website, under the webpage, How Old is the Sun? Last updated on April 22nd, 2020, they state that the sun will continue in its current state for 5 billion years. This means that solar energy can be harvested for billions of years. And likewise, hydroelectric and wind power will also continue to exist as long as no catastrophic changes happen in the Earth's climate. So, renewable energy sources will last for billions of years, while fossil fuels will only last for the next less than a century. After hearing my argument, you should now understand that alternative energy sources can be an effective replacement for fossil fuels. I have proven that alternative energy can produce sufficient energy to power our lives, can be cost effective compared to fossil fuels, and will last significantly longer than fossil fuels. If alternative energy is implemented worldwide as a replacement for fossil fuels, there will be significantly less pollution without a compromise in the amount of energy that we can produce.